Hey guys! In today's episode, we talked to Nicole Marie, a psychic medium and tarot and oracle card reader who also does live TikTok readings, and they're very cool. Nicole talks about her journey of healing herself and discovering her gifts in the process. It's super inspiring, and it gave Frank a lot to think about. I'm your host, Lauren.
And I'm Frank.
We are a married couple learning how to develop our own intuition, and this is episode 27 of Clairvoyaging. Wayfeather Media presents Clairvoyaging.
Clairvoyaging?
Clairvoyaging.
To say what?
Clairvoyaging.
Yeah!
Is anyone else dancing right now? Because I'm dancing.
I can't dance.
Yes, you can.
I'm not a good dancer.
You've never seen this man on a dance floor.
Listen, give me an old fashioned and a rug and I'll cut it.
You'll cut it up. Hey, everyone.
What's up?
We got a good guest today. She's amazing. Before we get to that, we want to remind you about a very cool thing that is on our website now.
If you didn't catch last week's episode, we have announced that we have put out a journal. It's called the Clairvoyaging Alignment Journal. Why is it called the Clairvoyaging Alignment Journal? It's intended to align your own inner self with your outer self.
Hey.
So it's based on a system I've been using for months. We have been talking to a bunch of psychics and intuitive people and have learned a lot. And I was trying to implement this in my life in the most efficient and practical way possible. And I realized that people might benefit from this. And I designed a journal.
You put in a lot of hard work and you created it. And now it's available through Amazon. But if you pre-order through our website, clairvoyaging.com, we'll send you a signed copy of the journal and a clairvoyaging magnet because we love you.
Mm-hmm.
Hearts and stars.
Hearts and stars.
Every time I say that, you laugh, sigh.
No, it's good.
Anyway, check it out. Get yourself a copy. Start doing the work because it's cool.
Who did we talk to today?
We talked to Nicole Marie.
We sure did.
I found her on TikTok and I watch her live readings. She connects with people.
Nicole Marie is out there in the wild on the very, very controversial TikTok about to be banned by the government.
Yeah, come on.
But she's out there slinging readings to people like it ain't no thing.
Yeah.
And she came on the show and in a way that only very intuitive people can do, she put me in my place.
But she didn't mean to.
No.
She just said some hard-hitting things that she worked on that could just it hit you in a different way today.
Today's one of those days I'm just feeling a little sensitive. I got my heart on my sleeve.
That's what this is all about, right?
Son of a biscuit, did she get me? So
yeah.
Listen, I'm not like Lauren. I didn't do the tears, but I was accused of crying on the inside, and I'm not going to say it was wrong.
Yeah, she did call it inner crying, which I love. I want Frank to do more of that. I keep pushing him for the inner child work and the... Listen,
I'm a stoic, strong boy, and I'm very manly, and men don't cry. We all cry.
Flip the script.
Let's go. They want to hear this.
Yeah.
They want to hear Nicole, not me.
Let's get to it. Here's Nicole Marie.
All right.
I just started panicking, thinking, what? Am I on the right call?
Oh, no, you're on the right call.
On?
Here's the truth of the matter, Nicole. Lauren just took a giant bite of peanut butter, and I was waiting for her to stop picking the peanut butter out of her mouth before we came online. I was just sitting here watching Lauren chew.
I had to drop our kids off, so I came back and was like, oh no, I feel starving. I just need to eat like a bite of something, but I was literally like shoving it in my mouth. So I'm really sorry that I made you wait.
No worries.
All right.
So, Nicole Marie, thank you so much for joining us today on Clairvoyaging.
Thank you. Nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you. So we love hearing people's stories and journeys. So can you just, to start off with, tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you into the work that you're doing now?
Well, before I took this spiritual path, I was a money hungry, power hungry, just chasing, to be the top tier of this profession and career that I was in the medical field. And my focuses were all in the wrong space. And I realized one day that I was very, very unhappy. I had a lot of pain and trauma from my childhood that was unresolved. And it was just creating this chase for unfulfilling things outside of myself. Money, vehicles, fancy houses, fancy clothes. And I was just left feeling very, very fulfilled. So I ended up moving away to another city and going through a very, very hard time. I hit, I guess, what you would call a rock bottom, which led me to a very, very dark space, but also led me to a very light space at the same time. And I guess some people might call it like a little bit of an awakening, but I believe that is what happened to me in that rock bottom. And it led me to this awakening of self, a connection with self, a relationship with self. Chasing all of those things outside of myself, I had no idea what a relationship with self was. I had no idea what self-love was. I had no idea what I was even doing or being in the world. And I started meditating. I started playing cards for myself, and it just started erupting very quickly. And it landed me here in a sustainable business of cards and mediumship.
Whoa. Okay. So a lot of people's stories are like, as a kid, I sensed this and da da da. Like, did you have feelings as a kid, like sensitivities?
I'm sure I did, but my childhood was so fear-based and so trauma-based that all of that was probably just shut right down. I lived in a very hyper-vigilant, fear-based environment, so I didn't have time to have that relationship with self. So we are all born intuitive. We are all born with the ability to connect intuitively, but when you're a sort of a product of your environment, it's really hard to make those kinds of connections. So it wasn't until I started choosing a relationship with self that I started acknowledging that I had intuition and I had the ability to connect.
Oh, this is so interesting because like hearing about your gifts just popping in at like in adulthood is so fascinating to me. Was there a moment where you were like, there's some kind of spirit that's trying to communicate with me? Like the first moment?
Well, it wasn't necessarily me starting a connection with spirit outside of myself. It was more so connecting with my own spirit, which is the basis of everything in life. It's connecting with our own spirit, our own self. And my journey started there, not so much with the connection outside of self. So the meditation started opening me up to energy, my own frequencies. It started really putting in front of me the masks I was wearing, the guards that I had up, the blocks, the barriers, the resistance that I was living in, the struggle, the chaos, the pain, the trauma. And so I think I had to move my way through all of those barriers before I could really start accessing, the energy outside of self in terms of like mediumship and connecting with spirits. So it always starts inside. It starts with your relationship within yourself.
That's kind of what we keep hearing.
Yeah. How long was the process from when you first started working on yourself to when you actually realized that you could do this as a business?
My process happened very quickly, and I like to tell people that I'm not really the norm, and you shouldn't really go based on me because it happened so fast and it opened so quickly for me. So by the time I realized, okay, there's something more to who I am, there's something more to life. By the time I realized that and started really delving into reading cards and doing mediumship and healing sessions, that span of time was probably no more than a year. And so people would come to me and they would come to me just blown away by sessions. And they would say, oh my gosh, you've been doing this for what, 15, 20 years? And I'm like, no, 2 weeks. So it just goes to show that when you choose it and you really choose to open up to yourself, there is no limits. You can open up at whatever pace you want. And some people just get sort of stuck in their barriers and their blocks and their limiting beliefs and their resistance. And it's like all of mine just blew wide open. And it was like, here I am, just raw, authentic, and vulnerable. And let's just get started here. So it happened very, very quickly.
I mean, even lately for me, I've been realizing that I still have a hard time shedding my own self-limiting beliefs, and it's causing some problem. I acknowledge that they're there, but at the same time, it's also like, those are my existence guardrails, and like, I don't know how to exist outside of them. So you putting yourself in that very vulnerable space, I'm sure allows for the growth.
Yeah.
We operate in limiting beliefs all day long.
Yeah.
From the tiniest of things, the smallest of things. So I'm all about looking at the little ones and sort of moving through those tiny little ones, because you can't really go from 0 to 60. You kind of have to start small, start with the little ones and move your way to the bigger ones. And that sort of happens organically when you start moving through the little ones, because there's always a succession of little ones that are leading up to the giant ones that are hard to face. The big ones are hard to face.
Yeah.
So most people they push them aside, and it's like, that's too hard. That's too much. I don't want to dig into that. I'm scared. I'm fearful, whatever we tell ourselves. And then so we just put it on the back burner, and then we still sit in the same space.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I've noticed, especially because I'm in like a new level of resurfacing things, because I'm like, okay, deeper healing needs to happen. And anyone who is actively listening to our podcast is probably hearing like, Lauren's talking about her healing again.
Lauren's going to cry at any moment again.
Yeah, she's on the verge of tears. Here we go. But, you know, if someone says like, you got to undo your limited beliefs, or like say some mantras, or here's a money manifestation thing or whatever, it's a little more surface level. And sometimes you have to like get deeper and dig a little deeper to figure out where that mindset came from. And sometimes that's how you kind of start dismantling it. So if you were doing like this healing work and like working on these traumas, that makes sense that one little thing at a time, you can like start undoing it.
Yeah, you really have to get down to the core of things. Like there's so many things on top of the core that we operate in. And I find that day to day, because people often think, okay, I need to set aside time to do my healing. I need to set aside time. It needs to be restricted. It needs to be in a timeline. And really, I utilize all day, every day to do my healing. I really take a look at the factors and the world around me. I take a look at my triggers and my judgments that happen outside of self. And I really start asking myself questions. When you're triggered by someone or something, it's easy to point the finger and, say, oh, okay, they're responsible for that. They hurt me. They did this to me. Mm-hmm. But when you really go within and look at where that trigger comes from within your own self, that's where you're going to access all of those limiting beliefs, the pain, the trauma, the wounds, and all of your internal stuff. We are so busy operating in the external world, which was where my story started. Everything was outside of self. Everything was pointing the finger outside of self, connected to everything outside of self. And when we really start internalizing it and asking ourselves those questions, that's really where we get to know ourselves. We get to know what makes us tick. We get to know what triggers us. We get to know what leads us to blame or shame or withdrawal or whatever reactions or choices that we operate in on a day-to-day basis. And it can be something as simple as, somebody says something to you, and you start feeling a certain way. That trigger's coming from within you, because that same person could say the same thing to someone else and they would not even pay a sniff of attention to it. So that's our triggers are our own stuff. Yeah.
That's so true. Yeah.
So I've realized that as an adult with kids and like being busy all day long, I'll acknowledge my own triggers. Like I have a certain amount of like self-awareness enough to do that. But I also have a tendency to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to take care of that later when I have more time. And I never have more time.
Yeah.
And I start collecting all this stuff that I need to like work through. And I very rarely get to it. And it's a bummer.
You just have to start crying in the middle of the day.
In the middle of your podcast.
In the middle of your podcast episode.
Lauren is trending and crying on the internet these days.
I did see a few of those videos, and that's actually what it really is about. It's allowing yourself to access where you are at authentically and unapologetically in the moment, instead of, I'll cry later. I'm not in a good space, or I'll think about that later, or I'll deal with that later. It's about giving yourself permission to access what you need to see in that moment and incorporate it into your day.
Yeah.
You ready? You want to start crying?
Quick, pinch me.
Can I?
This is going to be great content. Pinch me really hard.
Let's trigger Frank to cry.
Yeah. Healing in the moment. Healing in the moment.
Yeah.
I need to be better at that. Since your awakening was so in such a short duration of time, how did your friends and family react to that? Was it like Nicole's straight up cuckoo right now, or was it tell me about that a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah, it was a lot of, how did you go from that to that? Something's not right here. And it was a lot of loss of friends, loss of certain situations, places, spaces. And I had to be okay with that. If people weren't willing to meet me where I was at and to see me where I was at, then there was an uneasy feeling within me that knew that the energetic connection just wasn't there. And I also had a lot of people in my life who just wanted to be quiet about everything and not talk about it. And some of those people are still in my life, and it just remains sort of compartmentalized, and we just don't talk about it.
Yeah.
So there's a few variations of it, but I still remain authentically who I am, and I'm not going to change who I am to suit people outside of me. I'm going to be who I am, and if people aren't, sort of on board with that, then bye.
Did you find that a lot of your old relationships were based on that, your former mentality?
Yes, a lot of my old relationships were based on Nicole being in a trauma space, Nicole being in guards and barriers and pain and responding from that. Because whatever our relationship is within our own self is going to be our relationship with everybody and everything around us. Everything's a relationship. Money, work, relationships, home, food's a relationship. So wherever we are at within our own self is going to be sort of a mirror relationship outside of self. My relationship was toxicity and trauma. So I drew in relationships of toxicity and trauma.
So to get to Nicole 2.0, I'm sure you had to, like, as gracefully as possible, walk away from a lot of those relationships. Like, what's the strategy for people who want to get to the next version of themselves? What's, in your experience, what was the best strategy to shed those relationships that didn't necessarily serve you?
Yeah.
Well, instead of shedding or get ridding, I more so want to look at it in terms of I use those relationships as a means to look within and to see what needed to shift and change and be accepted within myself. So instead of, oh my gosh, this is toxic, I need to get away from this, I started looking at, okay, why do I have this connection? Why do I have this draw? What is matching in this relationship that I maybe don't like within myself that I need to look at? Where are the limiting beliefs here that have led me to this situation? So I used it all as healing. And when you start looking at those components that lead you to certain spaces, places, and faces, you can start to make changes to those so that you don't end up in them time and time and time again.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were able to kind of like recognize yourself in some of the more toxic people around you, were you able to bring anybody with you along in your own healing journey?
Yeah, I was going to ask that if people around you started healing as well.
Yes, because people have a choice. When there's someone who's operating in a healing space, a space of authenticity and just rawness and vulnerability, that creates the space for other people to recognize that energy. It's up to them whether or not they choose to step into it and do their own growth and their own healing, or whether or not they choose to just turn a blind eye and just stay put where they are. So there are a few people in my life who stepped into that frequency and chose to do their own work on an individual basis, not because of me, but because they recognized it within themselves. And so, yes, there are a few people that did grow with me along the way.
But also maybe a little bit because of you.
A little bit because of you.
You did it.
When someone starts when someone starts healing, or someone starts kind of like expanding their light or whatever, however you want to put it, a lot of times the people around them, it almost like inspires, or it's like contagious. Like, I don't know. Yeah. There's something about that.
It can inspire. It can inspire or be contagious, or it can be super triggering. So it's either one or the other. And the person has to choose, do I want to be inspired and do I want to step into that growth, or am I triggered and I want nothing to do with this person?
Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's true. once you started realizing that you could connect and practice your mediumship, were you like, I got to take a class, I got to join a practice group or anything like that? Or were you just like, I'm just going to do my thing?
I did a lot of courses over the years. So I've been on the spiritual path for about 15 years. I have done a massive handful of courses. They didn't really, you can take as many courses as you want. You can have as many certificates as you want, but until you start deeply doing the work, and it has to come from the inside, it's not really going to translate into anything. Mm-hmm. You can say, oh, I took a course, so I can do this for you. I can connect for you. But until it's coming from the inner space, it doesn't really mean much. So again, choosing to dive into my journey of healing opened me up and allowed me to make those energetic connections on a more sort of inner, authentic level. And once I started tuning into that, it did sort of just start happening organically, and I just started running with it. I didn't really find myself that I needed to force it or to push it to happen. It just started really unfolding quickly, and I just ran with it.
That's so cool.
When you first started experiencing like your mediumship abilities and stuff, what was initially coming through, and what was your reaction to it?
It took me by surprise the very first time that it happened, because I was so used to doing card sessions and healing sessions, which were very contained within myself,
right,
and my own intuition and my own spirit. And the first time it happened, it's like I felt a presence from outside of self, and I knew that it wasn't my own self. So I started kind of connecting with that, and I started hearing words and kind of sensing things coming from that spirit, if you will, and relaying the messages to the client. And it all just jived, and it unfolded again so organically that I just started tuning more and more into that. And I let spirit lead me and guide me. When you're authentically tuned into the spirit world, you can't really be steered wrong. You just let them lead you and guide you on the path.
So did you have any discomfort, like initially saying, I think I'm getting a message the first time you started?
Yeah.
Or were you like kind of immediately like, oh, this is really cool, I'm getting this?
I think it was more, this is really cool. Yeah, it was so long ago. And I remember thinking, okay, what is this? Yeah. I'm just going to give it, and I'm just going to share this. And because it hit so quickly, and she was like, yes, yes, yes. I'm like, wow, okay, this is super cool. Wow. I guess this is what I am now.
What a nice, like, immediate confirmation. That's really cool.
Did you start learning like tarot readings or oracle cards? Because I've seen you on TikTok doing like oracle cards and stuff. Like, what's your thing?
Yeah, oracle cards and tarot cards. I don't read tarot like other people traditionally read it. Lots of them memorize the meanings of it. I just read everything intuitively, whatever comes to me. And so, yeah, I do a lot of that. I do healing sessions, and mediumship seems to be my baby. I just really, really love that connection and the healing that it offers for people.
Yeah. Do you tap into a psychic element too? Or is it like, this is all just mediumship?
I keep them separate. When I do mediumship, I'm connecting to people's departed loved ones. When I do card readings, it's connecting to intuition, spirit guides.
Okay. So yeah, like what's going on in someone's like human life.
Right.
Yes, that's separate. That would be me operating in my intuition. Yeah. I keep them very separate because I don't want people to think that, oh, this is a message from your loved one, and your loved one is telling you how to orchestrate your day and how to move through your patterns and your blocks. I like to just make sure that they are aware that when it's their loved ones coming through, that those messages are separate.
Yeah, that's cool.
I have a question. I'm not saying this about Nicole, everybody. This is how she said it. You're the money hungry version of Nicole. I'm curious, like, what's your relationship with money now?
So now, instead of chasing it and thinking that I need it in order to be something, I now just operate from the inside with the connection of the relationship with money operating from the inside. So when you start having a healthier relationship with yourself, you will start having a healthier relationship with money, because that's a relationship as well. So I feel like I'm less in the chase aspect of it and more in the flow aspect of it. I don't feel that fear and that limiting belief that is making me need to like find it and and make it and, generate it. It sort of just flows when I am in the authentic space of doing what I love and purpose and passion. But we often operate outside of self thinking that we need the money and then I'll be happy. But when we are happy on the inside, it sort of flows more organically. And we are just abundant beings. Innately, that is the essence of who we are. So if we just really start tuning into our passion, our purpose, our happiness from the inside, it starts to flow instead of feeling like we have to chase it.
That's a big difference.
Yes.
Got the thinking.
Yeah,
pen.
I'm sitting here thinking. Well, okay, full disclosure, I'm going to be vulnerable for a second. So like, I lost my job in November, and since we've been doing a lot of the podcasting and all that stuff, and I'm coming to a point now where I'm like, damn, like I need to like figure this out. But also as far as creativity goes and stuff, like this has been kind of my flow state, but I haven't necessarily found out how to bring in funds to make our lives operate. So, and now I'm wondering, oh dang, Nicole's telling me I need to love myself first here, and like maybe that's the problem I have. I'm dealing with the internal stuff first, and then
see, it's got to come from within.
But you really need to keep following that creativity and that inspiration and that spark and that passion, because that will lead to the doors opening. Again, we operate outside of self and we think exactly what you think. Okay, I need to find a door.
Yeah.
I need to make something happen. I need to chase this. Where is the door? But when you really start just flowing in that internal energy and letting that just sort of fill your cup, that is going to create the doors and create the pathways. Now, whether or not you are in front of the door to say, oh, there is the door, I'm going to open it, that's a whole different story.
Right. This has already been a very nice interview. I have a lot of work to do.
I'm excited for the tears to come from
you're
Frank's face.
I think you're digging this right now because you're still mad that I was mad about you taking a big bite of peanut butter before we started the podcast first.
You weren't going to mention the peanut butter.
Well, now I'm only mentioning the peanut butter. Sorry, you had to hear this, Nicole.
Sorry, you had
the peanut butter has feelings too.
The peanut butter has learned to love itself. Okay, you do like TikTok live readings. I've like been in a live reading where there's just like comments just nonstop and questions and all this stuff. Are you like, well, let me just pick out one person's question and connect to them, even though you can't see them? You like only have their name or maybe their username or something. Please tell me about that process.
Yeah, how does that
so
work?
Interesting to me.
So it's all intuition. It's, again, what I've been talking about is that inner state. And that is what leads me or prompts me to choose. So it's not me thinking with my active mind, who do I need to choose? What door do I need to open? Where do I need to go? It's more so accessing that intuitive space within me. And I'm usually drawn to a certain statement or a certain name, or I'm led to it, or it's a prompt from within. And I just sort of follow that guidance, and it usually doesn't steer me wrong. Now, when there's a lot of chaos in the room, that can sort of start creating a little bit of a fog or a haze. Mm-hmm. And then comes in the healthy boundaries. And I feel like we really need to start as a whole, collectively looking at our boundaries and making sure that they're healthy boundaries. And so I do not operate very well in chaos. It starts to energetically frazzle me. So when that happens, I usually start implementing boundaries and sort of getting my energy in check. Because when our energy is not in check, we are not in the space to see those doorways or to be led intuitively or to follow the passion or the spark.
I mean, I was going to ask you, between the hearts popping up on screens and like the nonstop comments, with so many people like watching you and trying to communicate with you, do you have just a steady flow of like communication coming from the ether?
Oh yeah.
Like, is it are you getting bombarded on two fronts?
No, I usually have the ability to sort of streamline it into the person that I'm connecting with and the spirit that I'm connecting with. There can be moments of sort of chaos connecting if there's a lot of people's loved ones, all there at once, but I have the ability to sort of filter through it. Mm. And if I don't, for whatever reason within myself, then I just move forward, or I end that reading, or I, do something differently. But it's really about being able to tune out the outer world and all of that stuff around, just to kind of hone in on the streamline of energy.
Okay. So it seems like you have a natural ability to be very focused. Would you say that's accurate?
I would say it's accurate in certain settings.
Sure.
So if you've seen me on TikTok lives, when it starts to get chaotic, it's like, okay, I cannot do this. So we need to change some things right now so that I can be sort of focused. And it's more so, I don't know if focus is the right word, because I sort of want to unfocus on the reality parameters and sort of tune into the energetic parameters.
So then is it, instead of a not focusing, is it the boundaries that are keeping you in check?
The boundaries keep everything in check for everybody on every level and every aspect. Mm-hmm. So if we don't have healthy boundaries within ourselves, we are going to be lost. We are going to end up in frazzled situations, in impatient situations, in desperate situations, in chaotic situations. So yeah, the boundaries allow me to sort of manage my outside world while also managing the connection to spirit and the inside energetic world.
What boundaries do you specifically keep at the forefront of your mind?
With spirit, I set out a lot of boundaries that they can't come to me in the middle of the night. Okay. They can't come to me in the bathroom. And I don't want random people's loved ones just showing up in the grocery store. So I shut all of that off. I don't want that on and wide open all day, every day. That would make me crazy.
Yeah.
Than what I am right now. Yeah. The spirit, I only open up when I'm ready to read.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to ask you about that, because this awakening, or however you call it, happened so quickly. I was going to ask if at first there was a little bit of bombardment when you went out in public. Was it like, whoops, I opened a gate. Now I gotta close it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there were situations that happened with actual physical people as well, and with spirits, where it just, again, I use everything as a teaching tool to learn what I need to shift and change to maintain healthy boundaries and a healthy relationship with self. So if something happened that I thought, okay, this isn't going to put me in a good space, or this isn't healthy for me, I would set another boundary and just get my energy in check and my energy in order, and just correct it moving forward, so that, again, we don't find ourselves in the same situations over and over and then frustrated, and instead just tackle it in the moment.
The boundaries that you set up with spirit, is that something that you are asking of them, or is it something that you set up yourself?
I think it's more so my own boundaries for my own self, and they just honor and respect that.
Does everybody honor and respect that? Or have you ever been like, dude, I said no?
Spirit isn't really that way. Your crossed over loved ones aren't overbearing, and they're nothing but love. And so, there may be some, if they had a jokey personality when they were living, then there can be some jokey stuff in there. But other than that, they're nothing but love. So they're pure respect and they honor.
Okay.
That's
but
nice.
Every once in a while, like the jokey ones, they might give you like a wet willy and say, fine, I'll go. But first,
yeah, I'm not going anywhere.
Just back to the live readings, are there situations where you've connected with someone and they write to you afterwards and then do like a full reading? Or are you like, I'll never hear from any of these people again?
Lots of times they do book private sessions with me. So lots of my business does come from doing the TikTok live. So it gives sort of people a small taste of how I operate as a medium, the style that I operate in. And there are people that I never hear from again. There are people that maybe never come to my lives again. And whatever people want to do with their, whatever they get from me or receive from me, that's up to them. But I do hear from many people afterwards. Yes.
Yeah. Do you find that some people show up in your live readings? Like, prove it. Are there skeptics that show up in your lives?
There definitely are.
Yeah.
It's good to be a healthy skeptic. Yeah. That is a healthy space to be in. Cynicism is not. So when people come into my live feeds, and I get it a lot, prove it to me and I'll book a reading with you, make me a believer. My response is, I have no desire to prove anything to you. you are welcome to stay. And if that happens on its own, great. If it doesn't, great. Either way, none of it. I'm not going to lose sleep at night over it. So, it goes with everything in life. Some people are drawn to the color blue. Some people aren't. Some people like apples. Some people don't. So it just depends where the energy connection is. And I don't have a desire to fight to keep people in my life or in my lives.
Have you had any situations where someone's like, I didn't believe in any of this, but now your reading proved it?
I've had many of those because when spirit brings through their pieces of evidence, it lets you know little tiny things that I would not know.
Yeah.
And there have been things that, a client has said, I haven't told anybody that. Nobody knew that. I was only thinking that. And they bring through such validation that you can't deny the tiny little factors that nobody knew about or that, just happened this morning before the reading. So there are many times when there's such profound things that come through that are undeniable. And there was also one lady on my TikTok live feed who said that she used to be an atheist and now she's a believer. So it happens.
Whoa.
How about that?
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about your tarot workflow, because it seems like you use it in a very personalized, unique way. Do you use any of the typical spreads that people tend to use, or is it just are you just pulling cards and seeing what happens?
I am usually just pulling cards and seeing what happens. I used to do the spreads. I used to have a very structured, organized way of utilizing my intuition, but I realized those were limiting beliefs as well. So I just let it go and I let spirit speak to me through the cards, my intuition speak to me through the cards, and just let it flow organically. That's how it should be. It should just be an organic flow instead of structure. The structure is our ego minds just putting limitations on everything.
Yeah, it's always interesting. Everybody's different.
So do you have a favorite deck or anything?
I have a lot of favorite decks because I probably have close to 100.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
wait.
Okay. I have a lot.
All right.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Nicole Marie, tarot deck collector. I like this.
Yeah.
Is that part of your intuition too? Do you decide what deck you're going to use that day?
Totally. Yeah. My intuition leads me to where I'm drawn to and what deck I use. And sometimes I use a few decks for one reading. Sometimes I only use one deck. Sometimes I just pull one card and just energetically open up to the flow of it. And I don't even need the cards because we don't really need the cards. It's just a tool outside of self as well.
Yeah.
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 I feel like that's what Juan Francisco said the other day too.
Yeah. He did. You talked about having a little bit of experiencing some trauma when you were younger and all that stuff. Were these multiple opportunities where you could have maybe shifted your mindset, or do you really feel like it required hitting rock bottom to get to where you are today?
I feel like the best answer would be we all have the ability to access this without hitting a tanking rock bottom.
Yeah.
However, I was so trapped in my pain and my trauma that I'm not sure how long it would have taken me to get my way out of that. So, I think I personally, that rock bottom really did open me up, but I would like to think and say that we don't need to hit that rock bottom in order to access that intuition. And, in terms of awakening, I use that term loosely because people often think, I need to go through an awakening.
Sure.
So now Nicole said that she had an awakening and I want to wait for my awakening. But in essence, we have awakening every single day. Mm-hmm. Every aha moment, every little bit of healing and learning and growth is an awakening for me. So I don't want to give the false pretense to people that you need to go through an awakening and then you can be like me. So it's more about recognizing that every single day is an opportunity or a chance to awaken in a little way. And when we choose all of those small little factors, it can lead to the big awakening without it being, a rock bottom sort of crushing scenario in life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the rock bottom thing is the thing that you needed though? Or
I do feel like I needed it.
Yeah.
It totally just smashed me wide open. Yeah. And I feel like it probably would have taken me 25 to 30 more years to chisel through the rock barriers that I had built up.
I mean, I'm sorry that happened, but also I think it's really cool. Like,
Yeah.
to be provided with the experience of like having to go through such a hard time to get to such better times. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. Sometimes some of it can be just recognizing that there is trauma and then figuring out how to move forward or heal it and then kind of get a little deeper.
Yeah. Like Nicole is saying, you don't have to like wake up and suddenly your eyes are glowing and you know everything. Like, you can wake up one day and decide maybe today's not the day to eat a big bite of peanut butter before the podcast. and now
Man, for someone who said you're not going to bring this up, we're really talking about the peanut butter.
No peanut butter, and then you're suddenly 5% more psychic that day, and that's all it takes. Little chisel.
I am alive.
It's the worst metaphor ever, but I got my dig in, so I'm pretty happy about it.
But again, I just want to reiterate that it has to come from the inside. So I didn't start my healing journey and looking at my trauma and wanting to heal all of those things because I wanted to be a card reader and I wanted to be a medium. That would be me searching and chasing outside.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I started the work inside of myself for me, because I knew that I needed to build that relationship with myself. And it just so happened that the cards and the mediumship became a beautiful, abundant byproduct, but it came from the inside, not from me chasing it from the outside.
Yeah.
You were trying to explore your authenticity, your authentic self first, and the rest came along with it.
It just lined up. It just unfolded. That's kind of what I was saying earlier. We don't need to make the doors happen. We don't need to figure out how to find those doors. They are going to unfold when we operate from that inner space and follow the excitement, the passion, the spark, the fulfillment.
Yeah.
He's just thinking over there. His wheels are turning.
Yeah.
So
this is I feel like this combo is very helpful for Frank.
Yeah.
There's some unlocking happening today.
So I've been told in the past that I have ADD, and I sometimes wonder, like, in the event of like, let's assume for a second that I live into my full authenticity and I have something of a very slow, it doesn't have to be an awakening, a very slow realizing. If the door's open in front of me, how do I know I'm not just making up that door and it's actually a real opportunity or a real thing that I should go after? I'm trying to avoid using the word chase. It's so built into my terminology that's how I know I have a problem. But how do you know when it's the right thing?
By your feeling. You're going to know if you feel good about that thing or if you don't feel good about that thing. So it's kind of letting that internal center guide you. And so you feel good about it, you step through that door. Then say some things unfold that start to not feel good. Then you make a different choice.
Okay.
Or you do something differently, or you change your mind. But following that good feeling, that exciting feeling, that spark feeling, that's really where it's at. And sometimes we open a door and we think that, okay, this is it. This is the door. But sometimes opening that door leads to another door, or meeting another person, or meeting another doorway. And we get so caught up in, okay, well, that was the door and it didn't happen. And now I don't feel good. So I guess I'm done. And I'll just go back to my regular scheduled program. But it's about still continuing to follow that energy and follow that flow.
Yeah.
That's a great, I've been talking about something similar to that because I learned Reiki in the last 6 months, as our listeners know. And I'm like, oh, I want to be like a one-on-one Reiki practitioner. And it's like, okay, well, now that door it's open, but I'm like, that's not quite what I want to do. I kind of want to do more like group things, but each door that's opening, I'm like, well, there's a reason that I'm following this path. So I'm just going to keep seeing what's happening. I'm in the flow of learning Reiki. What you just said resonated with me because I'm like, yeah, there's a reason. I don't have to just be like,
it sounds,
I shut it down,
Yeah, it sounds like it. It sounds like energy is opening up. A little doorway opens here, another little doorway opens there. And it's, gauging the emotional center. Like, okay, maybe that doesn't feel right. Okay, that feels a little bit more right. Mm-hmm. And you just keep moving through that energy. But here's my question for you. There is what I hear from you is, okay, I would like to be a Reiki practitioner. I would like to do the one-on-one. I would like to do the groups and not, I don't want to say the word chase, but that's what you're looking for outside of self. But my question to you is, are you doing the Reiki on yourself?
That's a good question. Because, yeah, there's a lot of times Frank, I'll be like, I have a headache. He's like, did you give yourself Reiki? And I'm like,
well, look, let's be honest.
No.
I don't say, did you give yourself Reiki? I said, oh man, I wish we knew a Reiki practitioner who could help you with that.
It's too bad you don't have this magical healing energy within you that could help you with that. And I'll be like, oh, right. I think about it for other people and I don't think about it for myself as much. So great question, Nicole. Thank you.
Yes. And so I would say that, we are often busy looking for these tangible doors, but I would say him asking you, or saying the statement, I wish we knew a Reiki practitioner. That was a doorway. That was a doorway for you to open and say, yes, I should be doing Reiki on myself. Because when we start, again, building that relationship with self, healing that relationship with self, that is going to, fill that internal cup and lead to more doorways.
Yeah.
See,
yes.
I create passive aggressive doorways.
Yeah. It's all out of love.
Yeah.
And a little bit of aggression.
It's just the peanut butter. It's the peanut butter thing.
Peanut butter. It's really sitting with us today.
It's sitting in the top roof of your mouth. I can hear it still. So one of the things that I deal with personally, or I have been dealing with, is like going on this journey and trying not to about face and say, oh God, I need to go back to what I was doing before, my comfort zone, which made me very unhappy. Just because like maybe you hit like a very small roadblock or like things aren't always easy. I'm really trying not to let that fear make me turn back around and go back to the old ways. That's more of a confession, not a question.
Yeah, thank you for coming to our TED Talk today. I feel like this has been a helpful Frank.
This has been a helpful one.
A Frank session.
Yeah, I need to go meditate.
Nicole, this has been awesome.
Yeah.
You are lovely.
Do you have any like last words of advice if you want? And I don't mean last as in you're dying now. And what are your last thoughts?
I don't think anyone thought of it that way.
No, just you.
Okay. That's me.
Yeah.
That checks out.
Do your healing, Frank.
Yeah. Okay. Any parting bits of advice for anybody who's wanting to get started on their either their healing journey or trying to, become more intuitive?
Your relationship with self will always be the foundation of everything around you. Your relationship with self will be what leads you forward in the world, and it will be the most important factor in your life. Everything stems back to your relationship with self. If something isn't working for you, something isn't going your way, something isn't lining up, take a look at your relationship with self and what needs to be fine-tuned there. So we have to make it about us, really. And there's sort of a stigma that we should make it about everybody else in the world. And that's what has created a world full of people pleasers and everybody sort of operating outside of self. So your relationship with self. And some people don't even know what that is or where to begin, but it's, just start asking yourself questions on a daily, regular basis. Why did I do that? Why do I feel that way? Why is it happening that way? Why did I choose that? And it just start the slow process.
Oh, that's good advice for if you're not paying more attention. What is the joke that you're?
Oh, there's no joke. I was going to say, fine, Nicole.
Oh, okay.
Fine.
You're like very tight and like pensive right now. This is fun. I love what's happening because it's been me having these like little kind of not meltdowns, but like
a meltdown.
Me.
Yeah.
You're not having a meltdown.
I was going to say,
this is just interesting.
This is his inner cry happening. His inner cry.
Yes.
Yeah. It's happening.
Yeah.
Yes. Mine is very external. I'm like, well, it's coming out. I can't stop it. But for you, yeah, it's an inner cry. I like that.
Inner cry. Frank's inner cry.
Yeah.
Nicole, thank you so much. Give us all your plugs. How can people find you?
My website is NicoleMarie444.com.
Her TikTok is cool. Find her live readings. They're fun.
All my handles are in my website. So the best way to find me is through my website.
Cool.
Yay.
Well, thank you very much.
Nicole.
We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Have a great one.
Thank you for listening. Visit www.clairvoyaging.com for show notes, merch, or just to say hi. If you'd like to support our journey, visit www.buymeacoffee.com/clairvoyaging. This has been a production of Wayfeather Media.